Today we pit old school RuneScape bosses against each other to find out what is the best boss in the game. This will be a March Madness style bracket of 64 bosses total. This bracket will contain all bosses on the high scores, as well as each unique boss found inside a raid. Hard mode / challenge mode variations have been excluded for simplicity's sake, as well as different variations of the wildy bosses. If you want to follow along at home or do your own bracket, I've linked it in the description. I intend on doing small scale, for fun content on a bi-weekly basis as I work on some of the more heavily scripted content. Subscribe to the channel and follow my socials below to see more. What's up, nerds? Let's try and figure out which boss is the one. If you don't like my takes, I'm sorry. In my defense, I have none. I did just hit random seeding, so all these bosses have been shuffled. Unfortunately, you can't do the first round on each side and alternate. You have to do one entire full side of this bracket, then the other full side. I wish you could do it the other way, but unfortunately, you can't. So our first matchup is a classic versus a Slayer boss, and Abyssal Sire is the most fine boss around, right? It's just okay. There's nothing really that crazy about it. The only special thing is you get your uniques through like the Unsired drops, and I think that's really cool. And with Barrows, it's iconic, but it is Iron Man content, and I think it's really boring. Sorry. And next up we have Akka versus Alchemical Hydra. Akka does have the come phase with the white clouds, which I think is the worst thing in any encounter of all times, and I cannot stand it, and I won't discuss this matchup anymore. I'm going with Alchemical Hydra. Alright, I like they're both in like the same position here. It looks like the same model almost, but like the bony version of the bear. So I'm not going to include the puzzle rooms for the Toa bosses. That's not part of the the actual boss encounter. I don't find the monkey, actual monkey boss fight that fun or exciting. I find it kind of annoying. Whereas the new Callisto rework, I really like. I like the mechanics of freezing the boss. I like the red traps. The aesthetics are nice. And it's also like one of the best pets in the game. And I will be using like pets and other random factors to determine which one I like more. And off vibes alone, I'm going Callisto. All right, another wildy boss. So we have Vedion versus Bryophyta. It's hard for Bryophyta to beat basically anything because it's barely a boss. I mean, if we're giving it its fair shot and like talk about the mechanics, there's really only like one with the sapperling things popping out, and you have to use the axe on it, and I think that's kind of annoying. Whereas Vedion, I think the mechanics are fun. Hitting constant 60s with the salve and the chain mace is really cool, and you can actually anti-PK in there. I think it's all around a great boss, and I was heavily spooned here with most of the uniques and also the pet in like under 200 KC, so for that reason alone, I got to repay the favor, move it forward. More Slayer boss combat here. Kraken's not really a boss, it's kind of like a cookie clicker, like AFK simulator, so I will do Cerberus based on that alone. Okay, we're getting a lot of bosses in the same like class. So Chaos Elemental versus the Chaos Fanatic is its name. So both these suck, but one of them has a pet and the other does. Oh no, they both have pets, but the pet rate's way better for the Elemental. And for that reason alone, plus the memes go with Chaos Elemental, I'll pick that one. We got Sarah versus Corporeal Beast. Sarah is like, I kind of like, I'm not going to use the, Tumakin Shadow method for any of these bosses. I think it makes all of the God Wars Dungeons bosses just really lame. So I think the running on the room is pretty cool. I like how you bring a Serp Helm to Venom like the little guys in the room. But Corporeal Beast doing like masses or like clan chat stuff where you get like, 4 to 6 of your boys together and like just kill it on repeat is really fun. So I'm going to do that based on the whole, play with your friends thing. All right, this might be the take I get canceled for. So we have Crazy Archaeologist or Deranged Archaeologist, one of the two, versus Corrupted Gauntlet. I cannot stand the Gauntlet. Like any form, it's just the whole prepping part of Gauntlet, like the start where you have to like go and scavenge for supplies, I find mind-numbingly tedious. Like I just want to kill the boss, and anything we have to do prep work for it just fucking sucks. So I cannot stand it. I hate it. And the one on the right here is barely a boss, but it's on the leaderboards, and it gives rune crossbows to Iron Men, and I don't have to prep anything for it, so I'm taking that one. For the same reasons, Dagonoth Kings. I do not like Gauntlet. I'm not sorry. I stand by my decision. All right, we have the other archaeologist, which is on the Birdhouse Island versus Grotesque Guardians. So, hot take, I think Grotesque Guardians fucking rocks. Like, I think it's a boss that you can easily grind out because it doesn't take a lot of mental effort, but there are small mechanical things you can do that keep it at least a little bit exciting. And having all the loot stack up in the instance feels really cool. You get supply drops at a good rate, so you can kind of stay forever. And I like bosses where you kind of just keep doing the boss indefinitely, like you can just stay in there, don't have to run back. And the pet's really sick, so it's an easy Guardians for me. All right, Duke Succulus versus Bandos. I'm not a gold farmer, and I don't find Bandos particularly fun. I think all of the 5-0, 7-0 methods are kind of lame. Duke Succulus does fit into the gauntlet thing of I hate prepping for the boss. I think the whole making potions thing is obnoxious, and it just makes me want to quit the game. But I think it's better than Gerardor, certainly. And it has a bunch of eyes, and it's adorable and British, etc. Okay, Mole versus Olm. What a matchup. Both of these can be found in holes. Mole is really cute. So we'll start with the pets here. So Mole is a cute pet, but Olm has the like little brother came into your room and said, I threw up, where it's like standing like this. And I think that's awesome. But also, I think the Olm fight is one of the most rewarding in the game. Like learning how to skip, learning like doing it solo versus duos, trios, and so on is super sweet. I think it's an easy raid to teach. I think it's rewarding. The fight itself, like, is great. Like I don't know. I just it's a little nostalgic to me as like the first raid I learned, but and how I met a lot of my in-game friends and out-of-game friends playing or doing this raid. I just think all around it's great. I think it's a great teacher of various mechanics and is rewarding to learn. And solos is some of the best content in the game. Oh wow, two things that are barely bosses. I am a Wintertot slut. Like I love this thing. I think okay, I'm a gambler at heart, so I don't gamble because if I do, I'd go bankrupt. And I get my fix by opening loot crates in games, and you get actual loot crates at Wintertot, so it's an easy Wintertot for me. What a matchup. Okay, we got the two like scarab beetles, both desert themed. Hell of a matchup. Calphite Queen, one of the sickest pets, but one of just the worst bosses to do, right? Like it always hits you, you're always taking damage because it like alternates between range and mage. It sucks. Like you just take 1.5 million damage. I don't even like the dung beetle boss. What, Kefri is that what it's called? I don't even like this boss that much, but it's certainly better than KQ. And I've done a lot of KQ, and I kind of like it, but it's also miserable, and I recognize that. So KBD a classic versus Kree. Kree is one of the worst bosses ever. I feel like I don't know. I hate doing this boss. You take 1 million damage, and like the method, like chinning it is kind of cool, but I just don't enjoy doing it. And the new methods with Tunic and Shadow and other stuff does help, like be able to grind it out. But I don't know. I don't like judging things based on Tunic and Shadow because that just, I feel like it shouldn't count. I do like. Okay, both bosses don't really have mechanics, but I can actually grind out KBD and not hate myself because it's a little. You don't have to think too much, and you don't take 1.5 million damage. Kree has the better, pet, but I'll pick KBD. I'm a bird hater in this instance. In general, I love birds, but all right. So Krill versus Mudadile. So Krill has all like the 5-0, 7-0 methods. The step under methods are an abomination, and I do not like pets like Krill. They're just like high definition like this, and then they're shrunken down. I just think the pet's ugly. I think the boss itself, 7-0 methods, not fun to do, too much precision, and then the step under, you just take a beating and feel bad. Mudadile, this is the best image in RuneScape. This guy right here is adorable. He looks sick, and learning Mudadile was like one of my first experiences with raiding, and it's nostalgic, and solo Mudadile sucks, and so does like CM Mudadile, but Listen, look at him. Look at his little feet. Got little weird rocks coming out of his back, his teeth. Yeah, it's Mudadile. All right, more Slayer bosses against each other here. So Sire versus Hydra. I don't know. They're like in the same class for me. Like, I'll pick Hydra because it at least makes you a lot of money. And like the uniques you get are kind of cool. And I think the pet's way better. I don't like the Sire pet. I'm not gonna judge it on the actual boss fight because like I don't really care enough about either of these boss fights. But judging on like the loot and the pet, it's Hydra. Ooh, Wody battle. So these are my two favorite Wody bosses, Callisto and Vedion. So Callisto is like a top 3, top 5 pet in the game. I think it's sick. Especially was like back in the day with, you know, before they reworked the bosses. But I really love both these reworks. But I think Vedion, like hitting constant 60s with the chain mace just feels so good. It just feels so good that I'm going to pick Vedion. And I think it's also easier to anti-PK at Vedion, which matters to me. So I'm picking that one. Chaos Ellie is barely a boss, so I'll pick Serb. Archaeologist, barely a boss, so I will pick Corp. Grotesque Guardians versus that. Okay, so my hot take is I think both these bosses are really fun. Because like the whole like Dagonoth Kings cycle, like Dagonoth Kings like trio, it's one of the few bosses where I can actually get into a cycle with and like lose myself in the game and just like do one then the other. And it's not particularly hard. You have to at least like, you know, think a little bit to not like aggro everything all at once. I like Dagonoth Kings. It bosses that are simple that you can grind out a ton of KC on. I really like. But actually, I was gonna say it's Grotesque Guardians, but I get burnt out on Guardians pretty fast because just like there are some mechanics in this boss that like when you accidentally get thrown into a rock, you just hate yourself. Or like your blowpipe noodles and you don't kill it before the healing orbs come out. And that all can really piss you off. You know, Dagonoth Kings doesn't really happen, so I'm going that. And I have that pet, so gotta move it forward. All right, Duke, boss is fine. The intro where you have to like get all the supplies, it's tedious. Doing that repeatedly over and over again, I just want to kill a boss. I don't want to do this weird like housekeeping. It's definitely not Duke here. Olm has a lot of really fun mechanics. It's a really cool fight. It feels epic with this giant thing popping out. The way you get the loot with the chests and the, you know, path clears out and the purple light comes down. Oh, it's Olm. This might be blasphemous. I think this Toa fight is like not that fun. I just find like the fly phase kind of annoying. The dung is neat, but like it doesn't do anything for me. It's just like you slap it and then you step to the side and then sometimes somebody fucks you over and gets dung on the wrong side. Whereas Wintertot, listen, okay, Wintertot has the downside of people are saying some of the craziest shit of all times at the Braziers. But if you go to like the far end, chill people, I'm going Wintertot, easy. KBD versus Mudadile. KBD's a classic, but Mudadile, when Mudadile chomps somebody that's not you and one hit KOs your friend, it's hilarious, which on its own, you don't get that kind of hilarity with KBD or that kind of enjoyment, so it's a Mudadile for me. All right, I kind of speed through these final phases unless there's something interesting. Hydra's fine. You run around, you change your prayers, you step over some geysers. I think the geyser stuff is cool. I think the way it changes colors is cool. Like how it looks is neat. But there's something about hitting as high as you do with the Vedion fight, and also anti-PKing I find specifically very fun, that I will pick Vedion. Okay. Serb has mechanics, and like mostly they're trying to skip some of the, you know, encounter like the fights mechanic. You're doing things to skip mechanics that are part of the fight. No one really likes Serb. It's just like fine. It's a boss you can grind. I don't think there's anything that's really fun about it. The drop tables, like you get good things from it. Like the uniques are good, but the fact that you have like 2 uniques that are just dog shit and then one that's really good is kind of a really feels bad in a boss. Whereas like Corp, all those uniques are kind of slapping. And again, the group activity aspect of Corp is really fun. If you all want to do it, join the Duze CC. You know, More in the description. We can do some court masses. We can all become rich. All right, this is just no contest. I mean, Ulm's just one of the best fights in the game. Rex or DKs is fun, but not the same. Again, Wintertot can be funny when like a hardcore Iron Man dies there because their brazier blew up in their face. But Muddidial chomping your friend is still peak content, and it's got to be that. Also, the Wintertot pet sucks. I hate the Phoenix, but Dusted Omelet to make your guy look like a Muddidial, peak. All right, I'm going Vedion here again. Just the whole like movement part of Vedion and dodging the lightning I find fun, and hitting 60s again is sweet. We have a Chambers of Xeric team kill here. Ulm can't be worse than any of the individual encounters, so we're going that. And here, I do love Vedion, but the reign has to end here. Like, we got to send Ulm like onto the finals. Like, Ulm is a rewarding encounter. I've said it all before, and it walks. All right, other side of the bracket. So we have Nex, which I think is just not particularly fun. You can have fun with friends in Discord or something. And Nilo's is kind of stressful, and it's a panic inducing, but it's rewarding. And the final fight, you have to like swap your gear and your prayers to match the color when you're fighting the big like blood tick is actually fun. So I'll pick that. But let's not get twisted. Nilo is very stressful and can be very annoying. Whisperer versus Thermi. I like Thermi. I think there's a bunch of different methods to kill it, which I think is neat. I think the pet's really sweet. Whisperer I find kind of annoying sometimes, but I think it's also generally just a good fight. And there's actually mechanics in Whisperer, and like I don't find them too annoying, so it has to be Whisperer for me. So this is the mass nightmare because Fasani is like the egg on this bracket versus the Mimic. I don't care about either of these. I could not care less about regular Nightmare or Mimic, but Mimic is just you kind of run around, you get one extra little loot roll on your clue scroll. I'll pick Nightmare because it's better than Mimic. All right, so we have Maiden versus Leviathan. All right, I have some takes on both of these. I think Maiden is one of the best raid encounters, like mini bosses, of all three raids. I think freezing the blood spawn, so freezing the ticks, having assigned times to freeze it is rewarding and fun to learn. Managing the blood spawns, when to freeze, when to just kill them, how to dodge the blood that falls on the ground. I think all those mechanics are, again, so here's a good way to put it too. When I wiped at bunch at Tob when I was learning Theater of Blood, I loved repeating Maiden. I did not feel bad trying to learn Maiden each time. And that's a rarity in a difficult raid. So already I'm just saying it's going to win here. Leviathan, I like Leviathan. I do find the ending phase where the little ball spins around to be obnoxious. Like, it's just too much going on. Like, between watching the attacks coming down, having to movement click where the ball is moving. I like difficult encounters, but I like difficulty that's not having to keep your focus in a million different places at once. And that's what Leviathan's asking. And for me, for a little guy like me, I don't like that. It's an easy Maiden. Okay, Temperos versus Tecton. I do not like Temperos. I do not like this skilling boss. Tecton, however, I kind of love. Doing the little circle method where you run around in circles, or the step back, I think it's kind of rewarding when you dodge the attacks each time. I think you get some really funny moments in your group. Trying to kill it in a one down is like a fun little rush. All you and your buddies yelling whether your Dragon Warhammer hit or not, or noodled, and you're all frustrated. It's just kind of a cool experience. I just like Tecton. Listen, and you can get an Onyx in it, which is neat. So, Sodaseg versus Venenatis. I've not done a ton of the new Venenatis, but the old Venenatis, I kind of love the safe spot, and my guilty pleasure was safe spotting Venenatis. Like, I just really enjoyed it for some reason. Like, I grinded out the pet. So I'm definitely a fan of this boss, or I was at least. But Sodaseg is also one of my favorite raid encounters ever. Like, the whole balls bouncing around, swapping prayers, having to stand in designated locations, I think is a neat little thing. splitting damage when the ball comes down. I also think the maze is one of the most interesting things Jax has ever done in a raid. You know, one person leads the way in the path, one person follows behind. Very cool. It's got a lot more going on than Venenatis, that's for sure. So we're going with that. This son of a bitch on the left, I don't like him. We're going Scorpia. Scorpia's neat. I like freezing and running away. All right, this is also going to be not much of a matchup. Sarachnis, it's a good beginner boss to learn some like gear swapping mechanics, and not gear swaps, but just learn how to boss. Sarachnis is great. But Phantom Muspa, aka the Grumbler, is just like, it's like 2023 Zora. Like, it teaches you movement, teaches you gear swapping if you do that way. It teaches you prayer. You can do a lot of kills with the supply drops. It even has like the Zora thing of dropping an essence, like Zora scales that are like a resource of some sort that gives a baseline drop table. I think just it's a well-rounded, all-around great boss, from the drop to how the pet looks, everything else. Okay. I'm not going to even talk about Fasani's Nightmare, and that's what this is, because it's the egg, so I use that as the signifier between, you know, regular Nightmare versus the solo one. Bloat, I cannot stand. As a boss, when you fuck up at Bloat, you feel like the biggest dumbass in the world. But when you do it well, it's like, oh, I did what I was supposed to. You didn't do anything special when you get through Bloat. You just, like, didn't be an idiot. And that's not a good feeling. And people always greed there. People troll at Bloat to be funny wise guys. They fly you. And that's not fun. And every elite gamer wants to be toxic at Bloat. And it's annoying. I'm going Fasani's Nightmare. What even is this? This is the Hill Giant free to play boss. I've never done it. I'm sorry. This is poetic. The Fire Cape, the Cheese Cape boss versus the Chad Zuck. Chad is a classic RuneScape thing. It's a big milestone for a lot of people. But Zuck is like one of the most testing pieces of content in the game. A lot of people hate Zuck. Like, even people who have like 5 Infernal Capes still don't like doing it. And like, the grind to get your Infernal Cape is so soul-sucking. It burns you out. It's just so punishing. Like, it's truly a testament to being good. And even though like it feels like 80% of players buy their capes, I still think like it's one of the most rewarding pieces of content. It is the most rewarding piece of content in the entire game. And for that alone, it has to move on. All right, so Vanguards. I did not know they had a face like this. That's kind of cool. Versus Vardorvis. Whatever, Vardorvius from Desert Treasure 2. Vanguards is fine. When you reset it, so Vanguards is like Bloat. When you do Vanguards correctly, it's not that cool. You just did it. But if you fuck up Vanguards and you reset it and all the health comes back, whoever did it or you is the biggest idiot in the world, and it just feels bad. Vardorvis, I have a ton of gripes with. I'll probably discuss as it moves on. But for now, it goes. This is a tough matchup. So I think Vasa is like an actually good fight. I think it looks cool. I also think some of the mechanics in it are really neat, like venging when you're at max health to do extra damage. I think trying to dodge being stepped on, plus the range stuff and movement all involved is really cool. But Verzik is one of my favorite fights in the game. Like, it's super rewarding. All three phases of Verzik are really cool. They're interesting. There's depth. It has to move on. Yeah, it's easy. Like, it's just too rewarding and has too much depth to it. I do hate the pet, but it's a different story. Okay, so Vespula, I'm not sure anybody's ever done this boss before outside of CMs, so I'm gonna go with Vorkath, even though I kind of hate Vorkath. So Zelkane, these actually kind of look similar. Wow, I did not realize, like, even the the horn shape almost. But Zolcano versus Zarpus. Controversial opinion, kind of love both of these. I think the scythe walking and the slapping of Zarpus in the final phase when he's not looking at you is all cool. Zolcano, I find to just be really chill content that it's kind of fun to do with your boys. I'm gonna... Okay, so Zarpus has the tombstone phase, the phase where you're scythe walking, and then that final phase where you're slapping him. I think it's okay. I'm going to move Zarpus forward for the final reason of I think Zarpus is the perfect bridge from all the stress of the previous rooms in Theater of Blood to the final Verzik fight, because that final like leg of Zarpus where you just like kind of walk around, it's pretty easy to not die, and you just slap it on each side when he's not looking at you, is a nice relaxer for before you go into the big fight. And for that and I think that's good design in my opinion. So our crocodile friend here, I think this fight is fine. I think the water jugs can be kind of annoying, but overall it's it's fine. I don't think there's any mechanics that are particularly fun or nuanced. And Zulrah doesn't really have them either, but Zulrah is such a perfect piece of content in terms of easy to grind out, easy to, it's great for teaching people how to boss. And also the drop table with mutagens and the baseline loot of the Zulrah scales are all incredible. If you've looked at my YouTube channel, you'll see most of it's Zulrah-based content, it feels like, so this should be no surprise to anybody. It's Zulrah moving on. All right, Nilo versus Whisper. I like Nilo Room. I think it's fun. Whisper, I'm indifferent to. I haven't done it enough to really say one or the other. Or I haven't done enough Whisper to really like appreciate it. But from what I have done, it's just been fine. I haven't loved it or anything. I haven't really enjoyed. Grinding it doesn't feel good. And for bosses like the Desert Treasure 2 bosses, you feel like you want to be able to grind a bunch of them. And I find it hard to grind the Whisperer. My brain doesn't like it. But Nilo, it's exhausting and stressful, but I think the actual mechanics of it are neat and unique enough that we can move it forward. All right, so I'm just going to skip past this. Maiden, one of the best fights in the game. Regular Nightmare, it's a mass world gold farmer paradise. You just slap it and dodge some of the mechanics. Maiden moves on. Maiden's way more rewarding. So Sodaseg is, like I said before, great content. Lots of things you can do in it. Like you use every piece of the buffalo in it, and it has like the unique maze in it. Tecton, you kind of run around it. It's fun, but Tecton can also be very annoying. Whereas Sodaseg, I don't find annoying really ever. I just find it like a nice little challenge. Muspa, some of the best content in the game. 2023 Zulrah beats old shitty Wody boss any day. Fasani's Nightmare versus the Warden fight. I've been very critical of the Warden fight, but P2 of Wardens is one of my favorite boss encounters in the game. I think it's well-rounded with prayer swaps, movement, gear swapping. You have these cool downtime portions where you have to spec the core, you get to relax for a second. Fasani's Nightmare, it's a lot going on. The drop table sucks. It feels bad to grind. I think most people hate grinding this boss, so I'm just going to go Wardens. Zuck versus Verdorvis. It has to be Zuck. Verdorvis is neat. It's the new kid on the block, but Zuck is iconic. And Zuck does have its downsides of being brutal. And again, I don't think Zuck can win here. It's just better than Verdorvis. I don't like Verdorvis enough to outweigh the rewarding feeling of beating Zuck. A feeling I don't yet have, but I'm sure it will be great. I'm not salty about it. Vorkath is a job. Like, it's just a money printer, and it's not particularly, enjoyable mechanic-wise. You just kind of kill it to get money. Whereas Theater of Blood has the Verzik fight's very rewarding and can make you money. Easy. It's Zulrah every day of the week. Ooh, not Maiden. Theater of Blood team kill here. Both these bosses can be stressful, but Nilo is stressful in a bad way, whereas Maiden is stressful in a way of I'm learning, but when I get it, this will be awesome. So it's Maiden for me. All right, so we have Sodaseg versus Muspa. I think both these are really good encounters. I think Muspa can drain me, like both my prayer and my life total, but also like IRL. Like, I don't know what it is with this boss, but it just takes a lot out. Like, you feel like you're just doing so much in the fight that I can't grind Muspa for a very long time. And Sodaseg, you don't need to grind for a long time because it's just a one-part encounter in Theater of Blood. But all of the portions of Sodaseg, I think, are just cool. They require a team effort. Any kind of team content will get bonus points for me because it adds to the fun factor. So I think they're both good fights. Just Sodaseg edges it out. So, wow. Both of these have their problems. I will say the Warden fight See, it's hard for me to judge as, you know, as a cheese caper, the whole Zuck fight, right? I feel like it's uncouth of me. But everyone I've talked to who's gotten their Infernal Cape, a lot of them are just like don't like the content. People who really love the mechanics of RuneScape love Zuck, like they love the ticks and the brutality of it. But people who just like want the Fire Cape and are talented at the game don't really like Zuck that much. Kind of a piece of shit at content. Like it just is a lot of time dedicated and a lot of work, and you know it's just a lot to ask from people. Warden is Wardens. It has to be. Oh man, this one's kind of tough. So, Verzik fight versus Zulrah. I think Zulrah is one of the most perfect pieces of content in the game. Said this before, but the Verzik fight I just find so neat. And even though I know Theater of Blood and I can do Tob, every time I kill Verzik, I still feel a sense of like pride when I do it, and I think that ekes it out. I think Maiden's the best encounter in Theater of Blood, for the reasons I've said before. Verzik's a better fight than Warden's. All phases of Verzik are fun. Not all the phases of Wardens are fun. Okay, so the actual Verzik fight versus Maiden. This is actually tough, right? For me, it's tough because I think Maiden is like an incredible fight. Like, there's just so much nuance to it. Okay, I like in a raid when there's assigned positions. You have a freezer, you have the meleeers, you have the rangers, like, really you have meleeers and the freezers. But, like, having different assigned roles, I think, harkens back to MMOs like World of Warcraft, which I think this game needs more of, is like a class identity. Oh, this guy freezes here, and this guy DPS is here. Verzik has a tank, but not much else beside that in terms of, you know, a class system, in air quotes. But I still think the Verzik fight is generally more fun, and like I still get more pride from killing Verzik than killing Maiden. And eventually, when you wipe on Maiden, you just feel like an idiot. Whereas when you wipe on Verzik, actually, you still feel like an idiot. But I just think Verzik has so much complexity to it that Maiden can't beat it. A room inside the raid can't beat the main part of the raid unless the raid is dog shit. Oh man, we have Raids 1 versus Raids 2. I kind of didn't want this to happen. In hindsight, if I would try to metagame it, I would have picked Zulrah over Verzik, but here we are. I think that Theater of Blood is a great raid, and you know the Verzik fight is incredible. I'm not going to account for either of the problems of the raids pre the fights, right? This is about the specific boss fights. And Chambers, the Olm fight, is really cool, and I love it. It's great to take learners on. I think the mechanics of how they handle deaths in it is great. I even like how you do the prep work in Olm. But at a certain point when you do, like, let's say quads of Olm, you're kind of doing the same thing every time, and you're just kind of skipping all the mechanics of the boss, which in itself is very rewarding, and I do like a lot, but it can get repetitive. And even though there's a really rewarding solo experience that I think adds extra depth to it, the Verzik fights is just so much fun. There's so much going on. Okay, these are about even for me. So if I can use another tiebreaker here, I like the Olm pet a lot more because he has that like mom I threw up face where he stands here like this. Whereas the Verzik pet is the worst pet in the game, and it's disgusting. It's tough. All right, you know what? I'm going Olm, and I'm going Olm because I can do it with more people. I have more opportunities to do Olm, and I get to do Chambers Eric more often for a variety of reasons, because it's easier to find teams for Chambers, it's easier, you can do solo yourself. I think the depth of solo Olm fight is extremely rewarding, some of the best content in the game. And I think the drop table and the loot from Olm is significantly better than Theater of Blood. So I think the encounters are similar, but I think all the tertiary stuff I like a lot better with the Olm fight. It's Olm. Olm is the best content in the entire game. There's nothing better than it, and that's final.